A mission to Mars, a planet with a reddish, harsh atmosphere that presents obvious challenges. Despite the daunting conditions, the crew's voyage begins smoothly, everything seeming under control. Back on Earth, at the Mission Control Center, tensions rise. The director, Alexander Kovalyov, and his team are on edge as the spacecraft encounters unexpected turbulence and strange movements, eventually getting caught in a violent tornado-like storm. With the situation spiraling, Kovalyov orders the activation of the return protocol. As a result, the main section of the spacecraft detaches, leaving a portion behind on Mars. Tragically, this leads to the departure of astronaut Chapayev, Alexander's close friend, while the rest of the crew manages to make their way back to Earth. As Kovalyov delivers a press briefing, he informs journalists that unexpected complications led to the spaceship disaster. He reassures them that Chapayev sacrificed himself so the rest of the crew could return safely to Earth. Kovalyov then announces that the mission has been officially terminated. Just as he finishes, a staff member rushes in, informing him that they've re-established contact from Mars. Hurrying to the Mission Control Center, Kovalyov is stunned to see his friend Chapayev alive on a video feed, with the journalists now crowding into the room behind him. Afterward, Kovalyov urgently appeals to the minister, arguing that they need additional funding to rescue Chapayev. However, the minister declines, pointing out that they've already spent $500 billion on the mission and refusing to justify spending another $1 trillion to save a single astronaut. Afterward, a well-known TV host contacts Roman Randolph, the president of a major television network, with an idea for a sensational show. The proposal excites Randolph, sensing it could be a hit. Following this, Randolph reaches out to Kovalyov, congratulating him on the astronaut's survival and inviting him for a private meeting. Kovalyov arrives at Randolph's lavish office, where Randolph excitedly pitches the idea of a live TV show featuring the astronaut stranded on Mars, broadcasting the ordeal to viewers across the world. Kovalyov, visibly frustrated, responds that Randolph has no real understanding of the situation and reminds him that Chapayev is struggling to survive. Unfazed, Randolph tries to convince Kovalyov that the show would be centered on Chapayev, emphasizing that it's being designed specifically for him. He reassures Kovalyov that nothing would be forced or manipulated for the sake of the program. Kovalyov informs the mission control team to immediately begin preparations for a rescue mission, instructing them to adjust all timelines accordingly. He emphasizes the urgency, asking for critical data from the astronaut spacecraft, including environmental readings and details about the landscape and climate conditions of the area on Mars. He stresses that this mission should be their highest priority. Kovalyov encounters a major obstacle when the team informs him that their energy supply is critically low. The primary nuclear reactor was severely damaged during the crash, leaving only enough reserve energy to last for an estimated 14 months. Another team member adds that, while survival is possible within that time frame, Chapayev will likely begin experiencing psychological issues soon, warning that hallucinations could set in at any moment. Aware of the growing pressure, Kovalyov instructs the team to get back to work and continue pushing forward with the mission preparations. Meanwhile, Chapayev deploys an autonomous, robotic exploration system to survey the area around him, hoping to gather information. The robot detects something unusual but is unable to identify the object. Back at Mission Control, a psychologist checks in with Chapayev, asking how he's holding up. Chapayev replies that he's fine, though tension lingers in the air. Soon after, the TV network's production crew floods the Mission Control Center, setting up their equipment for the live broadcast. The once orderly space becomes crowded with cameras and production tools. Kovalyov, watching the scene unfold, grows increasingly frustrated, feeling that the TV corporation has overstepped the boundaries of their agreement. Chapayev makes a broadcast from Mars, telling viewers that the planet is surprisingly peaceful. He captures the audience's attention by describing the absence of war, disasters, and crime, presenting Mars as a calm and untroubled place. The message resonates with the public, drawing significant interest. Shortly after, Chapayev hears strange, unsettling noises. He immediately contacts Mission Control on Earth to report it, but Pyotr, overseeing communication, signals to Anna that no such sound is coming through on their end. Meanwhile, news networks around the globe are abuzz with the story of Chapayev's survival, fueling a massive surge in public interest. His case becomes a worldwide sensation, and he even participates in an interview with children, answering their questions thoughtfully, which further captivates audiences. On the other hand, the mission's host calls the president to update him on the situation, only for the president to cryptically respond that Chapayev's situation is hovering between life and death, remarking that it is a truly fascinating spectacle. Anna spends increasing amounts of time in video calls with Chapayev, monitoring his psychological well-being as part of her role. However, her growing closeness to him stirs jealousy in her husband, Pyotr, who feels uneasy watching her engage so frequently with Chapayev. Meanwhile, the technical team informs Kovalyov that Chapayev needs to conserve energy carefully, as the live broadcasts are draining power at an alarming rate. Concerned, Kovalyov contacts the president of the TV corporation, urging him to reduce the number of broadcasts. However, the president pushes back, arguing that more airtime is necessary to generate additional funds for the mission. Later, Anna arrives at mission control, visibly upset when she notices the number of broadcasts has increased. She confronts Kovalyov, furious that the power demands are putting Chapayev at greater risk. Calmly, Kovalyov explains that Chapayev himself has already agreed to the extra broadcasts. While conducting an experiment, Chapayev suddenly hears a strange sound, which turns out to be a burst of radiation. This causes a painful headache and illuminates parts of the spaceship unexpectedly. Back on Earth, Pyotr, who is overseeing communications, loses contact with Chapayev, unable to detect any sound from Mars. Despite the odd occurrence, Chapayev remains upbeat during his next live session, enthusiastically talking to children about the universe and sharing the mysteries of Mars. When one of the kids asks if aliens exist on Mars, Chapayev surprises everyone by mentioning that he had heard a strange sound, suggesting that someone was trying to communicate with him. This revelation causes concern for Anna, who has been overseeing his mental state. She begins to suspect that Chapayev might be losing his mind. Later, Anna arranges a private video call with Chapayev, who confides in her that he's been hearing voices, which he believes are reflections created by his own mind. He explains that it's all happening because his thoughts have somehow manifested these sounds. Anna becomes more convinced that Chapayev is mentally unraveling. During their conversation, Chapayev suddenly asks her if she hears the voices too. She responds calmly, saying she only hears his voice and nothing else. However, unknown to her, the communication machine next to her displays a sound wave coming from Mars. The following day, Chapayev appears on a live broadcast with the TV host, who informs him that the world is captivated by his story. Chapayev, however, admits to feeling deeply lost, as the isolation of being alone on Mars has begun to weigh heavily on him. The host quickly reassures him, telling Chapayev that the people of Earth are standing with him and promising that they will come back to bring him home. Meanwhile, Pyotr notices the sound waves detected on his computer and rushes to inform Anna. However, she is furious because Chapayev abruptly ended their video call, leaving her frustrated. In her anger, she doesn't give Pyotr a chance to explain, assuming his urgency is driven by jealousy rather than concern. Ignoring him, she walks away, convinced that Pyotr's feelings are clouding his judgment. At the same time, the president of the TV network calls Gregory, the host of the live broadcasts, seeking updates. Gregory, in a mocking tone, informs him that Chapayev has stopped communicating altogether and jokes that sending Chapayev to Mars is easier than waiting for him to reach out again. Meanwhile, the president contacts the minister, confidently asserting that true power comes from influence, not just financial gain. He elaborates on how to manipulate global events to keep the world at their fingertips, framing his strategy as the ultimate means of control. Elsewhere, Pyotr is troubled by the fact that he never got the chance to share his important discovery with Anna. The weight of it gnaws at him, but he keeps it to himself. Later that evening, Anna listens to a recording of her earlier conversation with Chapayev. Pyotr watches her, feeling increasingly disconnected, sensing her attention has drifted away from him. Unable to bear the tension, he tries to sleep but finds no peace. Meanwhile, on Mars, the autonomous robot continues its exploration and detects something unusual, a non-protein-based origin, unlike anything familiar. As the discovery unfolds, Chapayev, isolated and worn down, sinks deeper into depression, battling mounting stress and hopelessness. Kovalyov is abruptly removed from his position by the minister, who wastes no time in ordering Pyotr to re-establish communication with Mars. Meanwhile, the minister proposes an undisclosed offer to Chapayev. Surprisingly, Chapayev begins to act in an uncharacteristically cheerful and theatrical manner, performing gestures that entertain the live audience watching on Earth. Kovalyov, observing this from the sidelines, is baffled. He's never seen Chapayev behave this way before, deepening his concern. Later, Anna confronts Pyotr at mission control, demanding to know what's really happening. Frustrated, she forcefully tells him that she already senses the truth and insists on hearing it directly from him. She accuses Pyotr of avoiding the situation, pushing him to act like a man. Hesitating at first, Pyotr finally admits that the sound they previously heard was real. It wasn't just Chapayev's imagination. Anna, alarmed, asks him to reconnect her to Chapayev immediately, but Pyotr regretfully informs her that all communications with him have been completely blacked out. On Mars, the robot detects a dangerous, anomalous phenomenon in the atmosphere, signaling a growing threat. The following day, Kovalyov urges the minister to launch an immediate rescue mission, but the minister firmly rejects the idea, stating that the Mars program has been officially shut down. Meanwhile, Chapayev, alone on Mars, is in a deteriorating state, feeling overwhelmed by strange sensations and his worsening isolation. The situation on Mars grows more dire as he struggles with what seems like a breakdown, both mentally and physically. Frustrated by the minister's refusal, Kovalyov turns to the president, hoping for support. However, the president tells him he must wait until the following day for any action, leaving Kovalyov in limbo. During a live broadcast, Chapayev begins speaking to the audience, surprisingly shifting the focus to the presidential election. He praises the minister, highlighting the good things he has done for the world and the Mars mission despite the crisis. In an unexpected twist, soldiers suddenly storm the Mission Control Center, seizing control of the entire facility. To everyone's shock, they reveal that the Chapayev they've been communicating with was not real. It was a computer-generated simulation the whole time. The station is immediately placed under heavy guard as the truth unravels, leaving everyone stunned. Following the official news report of Chapayev's death, Kovalyov, determined to uncover the truth, confidently heads to the Mission Control Center. However, he is stopped by a Special Forces unit who informs him that his access is now revoked. Undeterred, Kovalyov tries to force his way through, leading to a physical altercation. In the chaos, a gunshot is fired, wounding Kovalyov, but he manages to push forward and enter the Mission Control Center despite his injury. Inside, Kovalyov urgently re-establishes a connection with Chapayev. Overcome with guilt, he apologizes, revealing the truth to Chapayev. There was no Mars module, no landing, and no ongoing research. He confesses that Chapayev actually died several months ago. Desperate for answers, Kovalyov asks Chapayev for a sign, something to prove that he is truly real. Just as he waits for a response, the connection is abruptly terminated. Shortly after, a breaking news report from an American broadcast announces that satellites have detected a massive explosion on Mars, specifically in the region known as the Cupid Plateau. The movie concludes with a haunting scene of Chapayev, seemingly alone, wandering through the vast, barren desert of Mars. He slowly ascends a towering mountain of red dust and rock, oblivious to the chaos unfolding back on Earth. His figure, dwarfed by the desolate landscape, fades into the horizon as the mystery of his survival and the events on Mars remain unresolved.